thing I see that could catch people's attention is if we didn't have enough jurors, but that doesn't seem like the issue is there. I'm just looking at like the election that just took place, and I can see a state deciding that we need to change this, we need to allow felons to serve on juries. I don't know, I see people attacking people in charge for making that decision. Is it something that can actually happen? Are states going to ever change this? Or are we kind of stuck in like a catch-22 where it's just going to stay the way it is because of the implications?
Well, I would agree. I would agree that it's so unlikely to even contemplate that, but for the fact that voting has changed so drastically. When I wrote this article, I said, there are only 8 states that ban felons from voting for life. That was only a few years ago. Now it's down to 2. So if they do it for voting, I think they can certainly do it for jury duty, which again is duty. Voting, that's a privilege, but jury duty, that, I mean, yeah, they give you $5 in a coffee mug, but no one wants to do it. They like it after they've done it, but no one wants to do it. But I think there's another factor at work here, which is the people themselves who are excluded. If you are excluded from voting, you notice that. You can't vote, and you notice everyone else around you is voting. There's this very public campaign going on. You can't miss it. If you're excluded from jury duty, you don't notice. Most people who aren't excluded from jury duty don't get jury duty. And if they don't think about, well, did I not get it because just they don't call that many people, or because they think I'm a felon? You don't think about that. And if you are denied the right to vote, you might litigate that. If you're denied the right to serve on a jury, you won't know, you're not going to litigate that either. So who's going to litigate it for you? The defendant, in a criminal case, is going to challenge the composition of the jury pool. And it's going to be hard for that person to say that they were disadvantaged by the fact that there weren't enough felons on the jury if the whole reason, if the whole reason for them making that argument, well, what are they going to say? They're going to say, this person would have seen things my way. Right? And that's where the inherent bias argument comes in. It's hard to convince a court that they need to bring in someone because they would be biased in favor of criminal defendants. Furthermore, they might not notice either. Right? I mean, they're worried about getting an impartial jury, and they're not gonna think about who's in the pool unless it's a sort of not a run-of-the-mill case. When you see challenges to the jury pool and you see the court saying, yes, you can litigate on behalf of the juror, but who's going to litigate that in a civil case? Like, no one. Who's going to litigate that in a case where, well, you get the point. It's not as direct sort of thing. It's not going to get people excited. It's not going to get them into court. It's not going to get them into the legislature. And again, some states have changed it one way, changed it the other. Voting really gets people's attention. Guns really gets people's attention. Juries are tremendously important, though. I mean, just snap your fingers and we don't have a jury system anymore. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. People depend on that. Do you tell someone that they're getting a bench trial and they don't want one? It's unconstitutional. So important that you could go to Idaho and, well, the perfect crime. Georgetown Law Journal. Yeah.
Is there a fear that juries will maybe misuse it, or jury nullification is the underlying kind of fear about this, and that felons maybe will disguise their true intentions and then will nullify a case? Is that a fear at all?
Yeah, I think it is. That's not that they'll vote against someone because they'll truly believe that this, not that they'll vote against the prosecutor because they truly believe that the prosecutor is wrong, but because they think that the prosecutor is right, but they still think the person should go free. The heck with the law. That's a consideration. I talk about that in here a little bit. There's a Paul Butler essay in the Yale Law Journal from the 1990s that I tie into it. The problem with that is jury nullification, first of all, it doesn't happen as much as people think it does. To the extent that it does happen, you have to decide what you think about that. Right? Are you comfortable with the idea that juries can nullify, can free guilty people because they think the law is unjust? If you're not comfortable with that, letting felons onto the juries might make things worse, right? But if you are comfortable with it, and many people are. I mean, I think that as a Federalist Society person, I would say, well, what should the power of the jury be? If you are comfortable with that, then letting felons on the jury, you would probably be a little defensive about that. You'd say, well, yeah, but that's not what jury nullification is all about. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think the prosecutors might fear nullification. They might fear nullification from people with family members who are felons too. Or they might fear nullification from people whose family members are police officers in a case where the defendant's a police officer. Right? We deal with that in voir dire. Mostly what I think, though, is that it forces you to think what jury nullification is all about. How do you feel about jury nullification? Is it okay? Is it not okay? When is it okay? If it's sometimes okay? And so this is a sort of a test to see what you really think about it. Personally, I think jury nullification is great. Back in the day, juries used to get to decide issues of law, not issues of fact. And I think we've lost something by treating them as these infantilized fact finders who can't determine what is just. Who should go to prison? Right? That's their decision. Not did he brandish a weapon, and then you give them a 20-page instruction on what brandishing is that they don't understand. I like the old days. But again, that tells you. It tells you what you think. What's the jury about? All right. Well, I think there's still a little. I see one piece of pizza left. And we're at 1 o'clock, but...
All right, with that, I guess we'll conclude. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and please join me in a final round of applause for Professor Kalt.